NPR CEO bombs in Congress with reparations lie and gaslighting over obvious bias. I mean, look at her. If you were to ask artificial intelligence to draw you an image of a leftist white woman, that is exactly what AI would come up with. That's not artificial intelligence. That's actually Katherine Maher, the CEO of NPR. She had a few moments during her congressional hearing today that are worth talking about. I'm only going to focus on two. The first one is a bald-faced lie, and she was busted in that bald-faced lie, and she tried to make up for her lie by lying.
Do you think that white people should pay reparations?
I have never said that, sir.
Yes, you did. You said it in January of 2020. You tweeted, "Yes, the North. Yes, all of us. Yes, America. Yes, our original collective sin and unpaid debt. Yes, reparations. Yes, on this day."
I don't believe that was a reference to fiscal reparations, sir.
What kind of reparations was it a reference to?
I think it was just a reference to the idea that we all owe much to the people who came before us.
Okay. So not fiscal reparations. Now, the leader of the nation's allegedly unbiased news outlet, state-funded news outlet, has now officially redefined what reparations are. If you are to say that if you're calling for reparations, you now have to specify that you're talking about fiscal reparations. So that's just stupid, and she's lying. I mean, that is a lie. She was not saying reparations now, calling for, we need to be just kinder and gentler, and it's more symbolic. She was calling for financial reparations to be paid by white people to black people, period. And it's an insult. I mean, like that really makes me mad that she couldn't just say, yes, I agree with reparations, or yes, back in 2020, I did agree with reparations. This was around the time of George Floyd riots, and I got swept into it, as a lot of Americans do, but now I don't agree with reparations, or now I do agree with reparations, or whatever. Own it. You can tell a little lie and you say, well, that was me back then, I'm different now. Or you can own the truth and, yeah, I agree with reparations. But don't say, well, actually, Mr. Congressman, I wasn't talking about fiscal reparations. I mean, clearly when anybody says reparations, they need to specify that they're referring to fiscal reparations because of all the other different types of reparations that apparently nobody else on the planet knows about. Anybody who talks about reparations, they're referring to financial reparations. And it's an insult. It really is. For this woman to treat us and to treat Congress as if we're stupid. But here's the thing, and we have to remember this. People like Katherine Maher, they truly do believe. I mean, she believes in her heart. She knows deep down that she's right, that she's the intelligent one, and that this member of Congress or you or me, that we're just too stupid to be able to, if I just mention fiscal reparations, then these stupid people are going to believe me because I'm the CEO of NPR. Therefore, why wouldn't they believe me? She also had the nerve to tell Congressman Jim Jordan that she's unaware of any bias at NPR. Even as he's laying out evidence of bias at NPR, she keeps saying that she's unaware of any bias at NPR. Now, to be clear, this reminded me of that moment when Caitlin Collins from CNN was on with not Jon Stewart, Stephen Colbert, and he's like, CNN, you guys shoot it straight and you're unbiased, and the audience started laughing, and she's like, was that a laugh line? And he said, well, it wasn't supposed to be, but I guess it is. That was sort of what this was, except without the comedic aura. People did laugh, by the way, when she said that she didn't know about any bias. It's subtle, but just watch.
Former senior business editor for NPR.
How long do you work at NPR?
I believe he was there just over 25 years.
25 years? Award-winning journalist? Did he win any awards?
Our time to
Peabody Award? That's pretty important, isn't it?
That is, absolutely.
So pretty distinguished journalist, right?
Certainly.
And he wrote a long story about what you do at NPR. Is NPR biased?
Congressman, I have never seen any instance of
Never?
political bias determining editorial decisions. No.
Well, Mr. Berliner, in his story last year, wrote, in the D.C. area, editorial positions at NPR, he said he found 87 registered Democrats, 0 Republicans. Is that accurate?
We do not track the numbers or the voter registration, but I find that
Was
concerning.
award-winning journalist who worked 25 years at NPR, Mr. Berliner, was he lying when he wrote that?
I am not presuming such. I just we don't track that information about our journalists.
87 to 0, and you're not biased.
I think that is concerning if those numbers are accurate.
It's concern. I mean, it wasn't 44-43. It wasn't 60-27. It wasn't 70-17. It wasn't even 80-7. It was 87 Democrats, 0 Republicans, and you say NPR is not biased. How about the big stories over the last few years? According to Mr. Berliner, again, he wrote on the Trump-Russia story, he wrote, at NPR, we hitched our wagon to Trump's most visible antagonist, Representative Adam Schiff. They said they interviewed him 25 times. Is that accurate?
I was not there at the time, but those numbers sound accurate. Yes.
Those sound accurate. But then he said when the Mueller report came out and Robert Mueller said he found no evidence of collusion, he said Russiagate faded from our programming. Is that accurate?
Again, I was not there at the time. I couldn't say.
You couldn't say?
I was not at NPR at the time.
You didn't prepare for that? You knew we were going to ask you about this guy, didn't you? It's come up like 6,000 times already in the hearing.
I just couldn't say whether it faded from our coverage, sir.
How about this story? October 2020, the New York Post had the Hunter Biden laptop story, and one of those editors, I guess one of those 87 Democrat editors, said this: we don't want to waste our time on stories that are not really stories. We don't want to waste the listeners' and readers' times on stories that are just pure distractions. Was that a pure distraction story?
Our current editorial leadership believes that that was a mistake, as do I.
Yeah, the whole country knows that was a mistake. Definitely impacted the election, or I think it certainly impacted the election. How about the COVID origin story? That's a pretty big story too, right? Mr. Berliner said, we became fervent members of the team Natural Origin, even declaring that the lab leak was debunked by scientists. Turns out, though, the lab leak is what most people think actually caused the COVID virus.
Sorry, is there a question there?
There is. You guys were 0 for 3 on the three of the biggest stories in the last 5 years. You guys were 0 for 3, and yet you maintain that NPR is not biased?
Congressman, I do not believe we are politically biased. No, we are a nonpartisan organization.
Nonpartisan organization.
I mean, I don't know. I get upset by leftists all the time, okay? Various leftists make me mad. I get triggered. I mean, anytime I see Eric Swalwell's face, I think, my gosh, what an idiot. But this particular leftist, this non-apolitical journalist leftist, she's actually the worst because she takes taxpayer funds and she pretends like she doesn't know there's bias when, I mean, either her education was lacking, she wasn't paying attention in school, and she's unable to recognize bias all around her, despite the fact that, she also can't even tell you what reparations are. That's a whole other story. But it's worse because I think she does know. She realizes it. And again, as a journalist, she felt that the best thing for her to do as a journalist was to go to her natural instinct, which is to lie. I mean, that's what she did throughout this entire hearing. That's what NPR does throughout their entire editorial process. They are liars, and we are funding them, and we must not fund them anymore. I mean, period. This, whether through executive order and Doge, or preferably through rescission, we need to end all funding. 100% of the funding for NPR needs to be ended immediately. They look, I run a news organization. I'm not the size of NPR. I don't have 87 editors on my staff, but we don't get taxpayer dollars. They don't need it. Okay? They don't need it. If this is what they're going to use their taxpayer dollars for, we would be better off taking it, putting it into a pile, and burning it. That would actually do less damage than how our taxpayer dollars are damaging America right now with every penny that's paid to NPR. So Officially, the JD Rucker Show is calling for NPR to be completely and totally defunded. I appreciate you watching that clip. If you want to find all the other places where you can follow my work, the best place to do that is at jdrucker.com/find. Be sure to subscribe, be sure to like, and subscribe in other places like Apple Podcast or wherever, because it helps.